Starting with Houston, we got our first look at the Kevin Durant Rockets against the Jazz last week. I'm trying really hard not to overreact because it was just the Utah Jazz, but I'm not going to lie, guys. I was super impressed by Houston on both ends of the floor. They still very much had that defense to transition identity. They had a stretch in the second quarter where it was like steal, run out, dunk, steal, run out, dunk, steal, run out, dunk, stop, run out, dunk. And it just was that classic type of run that we're used to seeing from those bench groups with like Tari Easton and Amen Thompson on the floor, just making plays, sparking those transition runouts where their athleticism can be such a strong part of their roster, right? Again, it's preseason against the Jazz. Like a lot of those turnovers were like Svi Mykhailiuk, and you're not going to be going against ball handlers of that quality every night in the Western Conference, but it's still good to see that that identity is still there. The big reason why I'm excited is they were a lot more polished on offense than I was expecting them to look. And again, I'm trying not to get too ahead of myself here. We'll talk about the bigger picture here in a minute, but Şengün looks awesome. He looks poised for a breakout year. I talked last week about how I fear I underrated him in our player rankings. I had him outside of my top 25, and I probably should have had him in that top 25. I looked back at my like all the prep notes that I had, and I had him at 30, which I think is too low. And I just think he looks like he's ready to really go up a level this year. I thought he looked amazing with the offense ran through him. He logged 13 assists to just one turnover against the Jazz, making nice kick-out reads out of post-ups. He has incredible chemistry with Amen Thompson. The two of them are running inverted ball screens. He was cutting off of his post-ups and on his rolls. He was feeding him in transition. Like just, I think 5 of his 13 assists that he had in the game were directly to Amen Thompson. Kevin Durant looked very much like a natural fit on both ends of the floor. He missed his first 3 shots, but then he made 7 in a row after that. We saw some looks at the Durant Şengün two-man game. As you guys could see, Utah did not want to switch. I have a feeling in general teams are not going to want to switch that. That's going to get KD all sorts of opportunities to score, getting downhill and ball screens, as well as opportunities to play make out of those situations. He scored off ball as well, very much in the flow. We're going to talk about Ace Bailey in a minute. And it's so funny because I actually see Ace Bailey in a lot of ways in terms of the fit in an offense. I want to see him attack in similar ways to the way that Kevin Durant does. Very much like tough shot making, but in the flow of the offense, which I think is a very important part of like making you easy to plug and play into any situation. But KD plugs in super nicely into the offense without having to like co-opt the ball away from Şengün or anything along those lines. Amen Thompson got lots of chances to attack off the bounce. And it wasn't perfect. There were a couple plays that went nowhere, but he got into the lane a ton. And when he gets in the lane with the amount of speed that he has, a lot of good things can happen. I really liked his attacks in semi-transition, like before the defense is really set. If he has space and he can get to like a move and a counter move, he's just so athletic that most of these dudes just can't hang with him in space. And you got to see a lot of that. Jabari Smith is shooting the ball super well, which again, like, you know, it's kind of a redundancy. It reminds me of the Lakers where you basically have 2 power forwards that need to start. But Jabari's shooting is so immensely valuable in this system that desperately needs shooting that I actually think it's going to work. Obviously, there's some things they're going to have to figure out in terms of how to guard against certain types of teams that can really space them out with speed. We'll see. There are going to be different types of matchups that they play. Because, you know, when you have Şengün, Durant, and Jabari Smith, not a ton of foot speed on that front line, but they'd be able to, counter that with switching and having your help set up, funneling in the right direction, and just having really strong off-ball principles, right? So, like, I think there's some parts that they're going to have to work out, but Jabari's shooting is just too valuable in that group, a group that needs shooting. Reed Sheppard, it's interesting. His on-ball reps weren't that good, like, as a creator, but I thought he defended like super, super well. Like I've been really impressed by Reed Sheppard's just activity on defense, the speed he puts on his closeouts to chase guys off the line, his ability to slide and stay in front of the ball and on ball situations and slap down at the basketball without fouling. You know, it's funny because I don't think he's even close to being ready to handle the on ball stuff that this team needs, but I do think he's the perfect guy to start with this group. Simply because what he is right now is a high floor 3-and-D option. He's going to hit his catch and shoots when they're open. And he's a guy that can guard the ball. So I actually think in the meantime, he does give them a really good fit with that starting lineup. And just in order, it's just one of those things where when you're talking about a potential championship ceiling, like contending with the OKCs and the Denvers of the world, that's where it gets a little more complicated and you start to think you need a better ball handler there. And maybe he becomes that one day. I just don't think he's going to be there this year. But I do see a lot of strong, like foundational stuff as an on ball defender, an off ball defender, and as an off ball scorer. Again, I'm not going to allow myself to have like a super passionate opinion about the Rockets here because we just need to see more. Like, there will be teams that can really protect the rim, that will sag off of the right guys, and that will make life difficult for this offense. I do want to see what that looks like. But my gut feeling after watching that game was that I overestimated how much the loss of Fred VanVleet would hurt this team. And if they go into next week and they look great in their first 5 games or so, it's not going to take me much to vault them up to the top of that second tier of contenders in the Western Conference. I was really, really impressed by how they looked. But again, we'll see after we get some more data against some better competition. All right, let's go a little bit further north to the Dallas Mavericks. This is one of the teams that I was most excited to watch in preseason because they have such an interesting configuration. And there was a lot of buzz coming out of the Oklahoma City game because they thrashed them in the first half. And so I went this morning and I watched the first half of both of their games against Oklahoma City and against Charlotte. And there was a ton of interesting stuff to get into. So I want to start with Cooper Flagg because he's the guy who's giving Dallas fans so much to be excited about, right? The most impressive thing by far with Cooper is just his ability to make reads on both ends of the floor. He's a playmaker. He'll jump a passing lane for a steal and spark a fast break and then make a great read for an open three or for a layup. He'll make a backside rotation and block a guy at the rim that leads to a fast break that leads to a lob dunk for Anthony Davis. He'll slide his feet one-on-one. He had a play against Colin Sexton where he beat him to the spot, stonewalled him so hard that literally Colin just lost control of the basketball and it sparks a break going the other way. That's a defensive playmaking that comes from his IQ in combination with his supreme physical gifts compared to most people his size. And then on offense, he just takes the reads that are available to him. And this was something that stood out to me in his Duke tape as well as at Summer League. He doesn't overcomplicate things. He probes the defense with the dribble or coming off of screening action, whatever it is. And when he probes the defense, he just takes what's there. If there's an open kick out, he throws it. If there's a drop off, he throws it. If there's a guy trailing the play, he'll hit the trailer. He just takes the easy pass and then he relocates out and gets ready to get the basketball again. Like, he's the definition of a wheel greaser for an offense. I think we'll see some offenses down the line in his career when he's really surrounded by lots of talent where that particular trait comes to the forefront and he really greases the wheels for a great offense. I mean, we saw a version of that in 2024 with Jason Tatum with the Celtics, where he was around a ton of talent, and he's kind of like the perfect star for that talent because he just keeps the ball moving by making simple reads, right? And like that, I think the level of read and react play that we're seeing from Cooper Flagg is basically unheard of for rookies. And I've just been super impressed by his floor game over the course of the first couple of preseason games that he's played. He's actually second on the team in assists so far behind D'Angelo Russell. The jump shot looks amazing, albeit small sample, obviously. He's only taken 9 of them. But he's 5 for 9 overall, and 8 of those 9 were off the dribble. He's 5 for 8 on off-the-dribble jump shots. He's 2 for 4 from the mid-range overall. He's 3 for 5 from 3. He's showing it in all sorts of situations, like he's hitting pull-up threes in ISO. Guy sagging off, he just kind of takes a hop step and elevates, knocks down the jump shot. In ball screens, going to his left against drop against Oklahoma City, he hits a pull-up 3. Going to his right against drop against Charlotte, he hits a pull-up 3. That's that combo footwork going both ways off of ball screens that you need to hit. He hit a couple of really high-level mid-range ISO jump shots in the Charlotte game. One behind-the-back move against LaMelo, hard drive to the left, snatch dribble back, just sheds LaMelo off and just elevates and knocks down that little jump shot moving towards his right. Did it again, not off of a pullback dribble, but off of just like a one dribble pull up, push dribble to the right against Miles Bridges. You can tell, kind of like Devin Booker, like there's some of these a lot of right-handed shooters are more comfortable going towards their left. I personally am more comfortable going towards my left, especially when I'm running into a shot. It's just easier footwork to plant that right foot and then your left foot. But there are certain players that, for whatever reason, are more comfortable going to their right as a right-handed player. Devin Booker's talked about this a lot. He talks about how it's about his elevation. He really gets lift because he knows he needs to square up in midair. And so it just engages his lower body more on the shot, and he can rise up and knock those shots down. It kind of feels similar for Cooper Flagg. It seems like he's more comfortable going aggressively towards his right and then just left, right, plant, get as much elevation as he can and rise up and knock down the shot. Again, obviously it's early and all eyes will be on the jump shot for Cooper, but a really good start for him in preseason. He's just going to be an awesome player for a long time. And I'm very happy for Mavs fans because they just had the year from hell. And Cooper, I'm sure, takes some of the sting off of that. Looking at the team on both ends is a little more mixed results for me. Let's start with the defense. I'm a big believer in Dallas's defense in the big picture. I would be stunned if Dallas was like healthy this year and they weren't in the top 6 or 7. But I think they got some work to do to get there. I was skeptical after the first half against Oklahoma City, just simply because Oklahoma City is devoid of offensive talent once you get off of their stars, right? Like the shooting and ball handling talent in OKC just isn't there compared to other teams in the league after their stars. It's a big part of why I'm not as high on them as some of my peers in the business. Like I still view them as a top tier contender, but I don't view them as a runaway favorite the way that some people in the business do coming into the season. And when I watched that game, it just looked a lot like Oklahoma City's bad offensive players trying to score over trees, right? Because Dallas is so huge, right? Charlotte provided a very different challenge, right? You have a real offensive engine talent in LaMelo Ball. You have some talented shooting and finishing talent off the ball. And LaMelo just fried him up. He fried the Mavericks in that game. He had a 142 offensive rating, the Hornets had, in 23 minutes when LaMelo was on the floor. That's obviously nightmarish for Dallas's defense. And I want to start on LaMelo for a second. It's funny because we just did our season preview on Charlotte, and I talked about how I'm kind of out on LaMelo as a franchise cornerstone. He's just his injury history, and there's a general air of unseriousness with him, which I think is tough to build a team around. But I remain a huge believer in like his natural talents as an offensive engine in this league. And boy, did LaMelo demonstrate that in this game. He picked the Mavs apart with pull-up threes and floaters in the lane and driving layups through traffic where he's like weaving through 2 7-footers and getting left-handed reverse layups. He was absolutely demolishing Max Christie in this game, like taking it personal. He wanted to kind of humiliate him in this game. Beautiful pass after beautiful pass. He never seems to miss a read. He always seems to put the perfect touch and location on his pass to set his teammates up to score. There was one with Brandon Miller. I think it was an offensive rebound, and LaMelo catches up on the left wing, and Brandon kind of flashes to the middle of the floor. And LaMelo, like, throws the ball high and towards the rim, basically leading Brandon in his catch into a layup. And I was like, that's a little thing where, like, if he just throws him the ball there, that's probably a 15-foot jump shot. And that has a roughly 50% chance of going in, right? But by leading him to the basket with the pass, it actually led to a layup. These are the kinds of little things that like the transcendently great passers in the league are always so good at. The touch on that beautiful lob pass he threw to Miles Bridges on the back cut. Like he's just such a gifted offensive player. And it's funny because LaMelo can really transform me into a grouchy old man who's yelling from the porch sometimes, and I hate that, but at the same time, I'm not a denier of his talent. The talent is real. It's just a question of, can he start to become the type of serious player that builds a competitive culture for a Charlotte team that's been bad? And can he stay on the floor? Those are the two things that he needs to address in order for me to like believe in him as a franchise altering talent again. But really, going back to Dallas, what LaMelo and the Hornets exposed in this phase of Dallas's defensive development was their lack of attentiveness and effort and quickness on the perimeter. The interior defense is going to be ridiculous. We've seen sequences where it seems like they have 4 rim protectors on the floor and no one can get a shot off. They had a stretch in the second quarter of the Hornets game. In just the second quarter of the Hornets game, they had 5 blocks. Like there's going to be a lot of moments like that where their interior defense is frightening. That's going to be easy for them. But they do have a lot of work to do outside the paint. There's a tendency with bigger interior players versus smaller, quicker perimeter players. There's a tendency with some of those bigger players to give up catch and shoot openings. And we've seen a lot of that so far with Dallas. So like, for example, simple interchanges or screening actions. Guards, they're so used to guarding dudes who can shoot really well since they were kids that they're usually up to touch, like they're up on the other side waiting for the guy coming off, and they don't concede easy openings out of those things. Bigs have a tendency to kind of soft switch. Like, yeah, I'm here. If you try to turn the corner, you're going to run right into me. But like, if you want to come off of that dribble handoff and shoot, like I'm going to let you take it. And NBA players are really damn good, and they're going to knock that shot down. It's like there's another level of shooting talent throughout the league compared to what it was like 5, 10 years ago, right? And like that's why, when you have more bigs on the floor, you have fours playing the three and fives playing the four. They're going to be guarding guys that can shoot better than they're typically used to guarding. And so, that even goes into help defense situations. Guards, they're so used to guarding shooters, they'll get a foot in the paint and they'll dig down and they'll sprint out to the perimeter with urgency because they've been guarding shooters their whole life and they just know how to get back out to the perimeter. And like bigs, they have a habit of sagging into the paint to help and like not having that same level of urgency to get back out to the perimeter. And there just were a lot of situations like that where Dallas was giving up pretty easy over the top catch and shoot or off the dribble jump shots because they just weren't bringing that level of perimeter intensity from their front court positions. Overall, in the first half of both of their games, Dallas gave up 40 catch and shoot jump shots just in the first half of the two games. As a team, in both games in total, they're averaging allowing 35 catch and shoot looks per game. That ranks sixth worst in the NBA so far in preseason. That's a big part of that like perimeter intensity that they're going to have to pick up on. And the main culprit here on film has actually been Anthony Davis. And I'm going to try really hard to not overreact here. But in general, I've just been super disappointed in AD to start this training camp. On the one hand, I'm not super surprised because this is exactly what it was like with the Lakers. He'd always come into camp out of shape and unpolished, and it always took forever for him to like really find his groove. But I'm especially disappointed this year just because I thought he'd come out for blood. Like, dude, you just got traded. I thought you'd come into camp in the best shape of your life with a new opportunity, legitimately a better roster than when you last played in Los Angeles. Like probably the best, like overall talented roster you've been on in years. A real opportunity to win the title if Kyrie Irving can come back towards the end of the season, and especially if you hit on some sort of roster balancing trade, and you came into camp fatter than you've ever been. And it hasn't been pretty on film. Like he's bricking jumpers. He's throwing these aimless drives where he just smokes layups and falls on the ground and cries for fouls. On defense, he was legitimately awful against Charlotte. He got fried by Miles Bridges because he just wasn't paying attention to him half the time, botching screen coverages, not being up to touch against shooters. He's just not locked in right now. And again, I know it's just preseason, and I probably sound ridiculous right now, but I just thought we'd see a different version of AD this year. I'm a huge believer in Anthony Davis's ceiling. I've talked about it so many times on the show. I think he was the best defender in the league when he was healthy and locked in before Victor Wembanyama came around. He's like an efficient 26 points per game when he's healthy and locked in on offense. I believe in what he can be and what he is when he's healthy, but this stuff just gets so frustrating. And like, again, one thing I'll say about it's just preseason thing. He looks like this in the regular season sometimes too. And this team is going nowhere fast unless they can get Anthony Davis like locked in, focused, and playing to the level he's capable of. And so I hope this is me just being ridiculous. And I hope that this is AD just coasting in preseason and that he comes out in the regular season and he kicks ass and this Dallas team has something to really show the league. But overall, I just have been disappointed with the level of like conditioning and just engagement from Anthony Davis in the preseason games that I've seen to this point. Maybe it looks way better behind closed doors in camp. I don't know, but I've just been a little disappointed. Overall, with Dallas's defense, though, again, I think they're going to be fine. They just have some work to do. And I think they are going to have some trouble with quick guards. Their backcourt is slow, right? Like D'Lo and Clay, that's not a foot speed machine, right? And even when Max Christie gets in the game, they have him chase over the top. And as soon as Max got caught on the screen and LaMelo got downhill, LaMelo did whatever he wanted, scoring in the mid-range and knifing around bigs in space and getting to the rim, right? So, like, they're going to have to figure something out for that. I think a potential solution there is to do more switching and then just basically have your bigs set up to try to contest pull-up threes. And then if they do get beat on the dribble, like funneling them in a specific direction where your help defense can be a little bit more prepared. But overall, like, overall, I just think they're pretty far from what they need to be defensively. Like they need to be a truly elite defense in order for Kyrie to come in and make this team a serious championship contender. They have the personnel for it. I do believe they'll get there. I just think right now on the perimeter, they've got some work to do, and Charlotte kind of exposed them a little bit in that particular game. On offense, predictably they've struggled, but I do like some of the stuff I'm seeing. Like we talked about Cooper Flagg shooting and passing earlier. That's a positive. I haven't loved all of the shots that D'Lo's taken. I think he's been a little too aggressive, but I do think overall you can see how his handling and his playmaking will be high value with this team. Jason Kidd has clearly heavily emphasized back cutting, which I think is super smart. When you don't have a ton of ball handling and you need to get the ball into the paint, manufacturing penetration with cutting is a great way to do that, as long as you have guys who can pass. And like Derek Lively can pass, Anthony Davis can pass, your bigs can pass pretty well. D'Angelo Russell has hit Max Christie on like 5 back cuts already, right? But you're also seeing some of the clunkiness. Like we talked about earlier, AD right now is not even close to polished enough offensively to play the 4. That's going to be something they're going to have to figure out. He just has to get better. You can see that on his drives. They look kind of aimless, and he looks slow on his drives. His jumper looks nasty right now. The lack of ball handling is forcing guys like Cooper and D'Lo to take some tough shots. That's something that stood out to me early. Like Cooper's taking some tough off the dribble shots. He's hitting them right now, but D'Lo's had to take some too. That's a tough shot diet. And as a team, they just don't have very much shooting. So far through preseason, they're 29 for 91 on all jump shots at just 0.87 points per possession. So teams will eventually just start packing the paint on them. And like even the Oklahoma City game, like they got most of their back cuts in the OKC game because OKC is pressuring and denying. But when a guy denies, it's easy to back cut. But what if the guy doesn't deny and he just sags in the paint? Then those back cuts aren't open, and all of a sudden it's going to be about guys being able to really process an interior passing and knocking down shots over the top, which is a weakness for this particular team, right? One last positive thing that I want to end on, though, they're going to struggle to score, right? Which is why it's important for them to be a top-tier defense like we talked about. But they have looked awesome in transition. And this is the potential for this team. All of their bigs and forwards run the floor super well. And they get so many opportunities to run out because they force a lot of jump shots, and they're going to get a lot of blocks and deflections and things like that that lead to runouts. In those situations, they're making great reads. Both Cooper and D'Lo have been great with their passing reads in transition situations. Cooper's made a bunch of his assists have come in transition. D'Lo hit that lob to Cooper in the first half of the Charlotte game. If they are a truly elite top-tier defense and they use that to be a dominant transition team, and Kyrie comes back and polishes them up in the half court a little bit, that's where they become a serious threat out in the Western Conference.